The city of Glasgow has changed beyond all recognition in recent years. Although Glasgow's Victorian heritage is still very evident in her magnificent architecture, the city is now looking toward the future and meeting the challenges of the 21st century. In 1999, Glasgow was the UK's City of Architecture and Design, and the city is now a showcase for the exciting new designs of emerging young architects. Running through the centre of Glasgow is the great artery of the River Clyde. Rising in the distant hills, this river was once the lifeblood of the city, feeding the Lanarkshire mills with power and providing a home to a once great shipbuilding industry. Today, only a few ships are built on the Clyde, and the thriving shipyards have become home to property developers. As we leave the ordered suburbs of Milngavie and take the road north to the hills, you'll be amazed at how quickly the city disappears and we're immediately transported into a wild highland landscape. The first line of hills to the north are the Campsie Fells, and it was facing these hills that the Romans built the Antonine Wall, the northernmost limit of their great empire. The bathhouse can still be clearly seen at Bar Hill Fort. This would have been one of the few luxuries for the Mediterranean soldiers, facing the fearsome Picts in a cold and barbarous land on this lonely outpost. At the end of the bus route from Glasgow lies the charming Clachan of Campsie. Next to the tea room and artisan shops is the ancient churchyard with its historic stones. The graveyard also houses the Lennox family mausoleum. Nestling at the foot of the Campsies is the famous Glengoyne distillery, producing Scotland's national drink, Uiscabe, the water of life. The art of the distiller has been handed down through the generations, and the unhurried pace of the distillery reflects the time and care needed to produce this fine malt whisky. Fed by mountain springs and lovingly produced to an age-old recipe, the Glengoyne is a malt well worth sampling. As the mighty and majestic Highland line of hills begin to increasingly dominate the landscape, take the road to Drimmen. The village of Drimmen is the gateway to Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park. The Drimmen pottery and some great pubs are clustered around the main square, perfect for a quick snack or a longer lunch, while you enjoy the slower pace of life in rural Scotland. Relax and enjoy the sublime landscapes of the newly formed national park bordering Loch Lomond, which at 23 miles long is Britain's largest inland waterway and boasts some of the best views in Scotland. If you're feeling energetic, take the West Highland Way, a mere 90-mile stroll to Fort William. But you don't have to be a dedicated walker to enjoy the loch. There are walks and activities for all ages and abilities. You can feed the birds against the backdrop of Ben Lomond, Glasgow's closest Munro, or visit the delightful statue of Peter Pan. The Loch Lomond Shores Visitor Centre provides a welcome haven for those who want to warm up with a coffee at the distinctive Drumkinnon Tower and shop at some top retail outlets. Further to the east, at the head of an atmospheric Loch Foyle, you can visit the little churchyard at Balquhidder. Here lie the mortal remains of Rob Roy MacGregor, the great Scottish patriot and fighter against the injustices that plagued the Highland clans in the 18th century. Arriving in Aberfoyle, you can browse in the Green Gallery, which shows an eclectic collection of contemporary art. Sample one of the many different pubs, restaurants and tea rooms before escaping to the tranquility of the Trossachs, an area of outstanding natural beauty. You can hire a sailing boat or chill out with a picnic on the water's edge. The Trossach Hills, just a short car journey to the north of Glasgow, offer some of the most spectacular hill walking in Britain. Lying in the heart of the Trossachs is the mighty Loch Katrine, the inspiration for Walter Scott's Lady of the Loch, and the source of much of Glasgow's water supply. During the summer months, you can hire a bicycle and cycle around the loch, or take a trip on the steam-driven Walter Scott, which is relaunched with great fanfare every May and sails the length of Loch Katrine. It's a 12-mile walk or bike ride to Stronachar, where you will experience some of the most tranquil scenery imaginable. From the head of Loch Katrine, serious walkers can take the overland route to the northern shores of Loch Lomond. Here you will find the wonderfully eccentric Drovers Inn. Little changed since the days when the cattle drovers would have stopped here on their way to market. Crossing the lonely expanse of Rannoch Moor, the landscape becomes increasingly rugged and dramatic. Our journey ends in the sombre setting of Glencoe, scene of the infamous massacre of the MacDonalds by the Campbells in 1692. Glasgow, despite some brutal planning decisions in the 60s and 70s, still has some astonishing architectural gems. The recently restored Dolton Fountain now has pride of place on Glasgow Green. The largest terracotta fountain in the world depicts scenes from Queen Victoria's reign. The architect of the Templeton Carpet Factory based his design on what he considered the most beautiful building in the world, the Doge's Palace in Venice, and this extravagant factory was the result. The Crystal Palace on Jamaica Street, designed as the prototype for the real Crystal Palace in London. The beautiful Sterling Library, and some gems from the Art Deco period. Two architects dominate all others in Glasgow in terms of their achievements and legacy. They are Charles Rennie Mackintosh and the lesser-known Alexander Greek Thomson. Charles Rennie Mackintosh was born one of 11 children in the Townhead area of Glasgow, close to the cathedral. From these humble beginnings, he rose to become one of the most celebrated architects of his generation. He met Margaret MacDonald, his future wife, at the Glasgow School of Art, and much of what can be seen in the buildings and collections involves their artistic collaboration. In 1902, Mackintosh collaborated with his wife on the design of Hill House in Helensburgh, considered by many to be his finest example of domestic architecture. Although commissioned over 100 years ago, the house with its radical use of geometric shapes still looks boldly modern. He was a master at handling light and space, and many of his well-known pieces of furniture have themselves become icons. Mackintosh took his inspiration from Scottish traditions and blended them with the flourish of Art Nouveau and the simplicity of Japanese forms. Much of his work has survived and can be seen in and around Glasgow. These beautifully preserved and curated examples of his interiors can be seen in the Hunterian Museum. Greek Thomson only preceded Mackintosh by a few years, yet his architecture was firmly rooted in the pre-Roman classical style. Strangely, Thomson barely left Scotland and certainly never visited Greece. Instead, he drew his inspiration from published sources and his own fertile imagination. Despite the best efforts of the city planners, there are still some exquisite examples of Thomson's work to be seen in Glasgow. Homewood, just a few miles to the south of the Burrell collection, is considered to be a perfect example of Thomson's domestic architecture. Everywhere in the building is evidence of Thomson's love of and connection with the classical. For those in need of spiritual refreshment, the sumptuous interior of St Vincent Street Church awaits. You can join the congregation of the Free Church of Scotland and listen to the haunting music of the Gaelic Psalms as you sit under the ornate ceiling said to have been inspired by the Temple of Solomon. On the upper reaches of the Clyde lies New Lanark Mill, a vision of utopia realised by the great social reformer Robert Owen. Owen believed in universal education, and the beautiful and spacious classroom at New Lanark would put most present-day classrooms to shame. He provided decent homes, fair wages, free healthcare, which included the first nursery school in the world. Today, as you wander around the village and wildlife reserve, it's easy to transport yourself back in time and imagine how people once lived and worked in Owen's day. The great machines now lie silently at rest, although some have now been lovingly restored, and you can witness how these powerful looms once fueled the Industrial Revolution. The Falls of Clyde, a mile upriver, are host to some exotic visitors. A breeding pair of rare peregrine falcons are protected around the clock by a dedicated team of volunteers and have bred in this secluded spot for the past 5 years. In Scotland, there's no such thing as bad weather, only the wrong clothes, so said Billy Connolly. Another much-quoted man with a social conscience was Rabbie Burns, whose life and work is celebrated at the Burns Heritage Centre. The museum houses a rich collection of artefacts and rare editions of Burns's works. You can see the old kirk, where Tam O'Shanter witnessed the coven of witches dancing, and the Brigadoon, where the terrified and inebriated Tam was chased by the same witches. Rabbie Burns' parents were poor tenant farmers, and you can still visit the cottage where they once lived. To the west, in the once busy port of Irvine, is the main site of the Scottish Maritime Museum. The cathedral-like Lint House building, transported from its former site on the Clyde and rebuilt brick by brick, is the centrepiece of this fascinating museum. As well as the boats housed in the museum, some of the old shipyard machinery is gradually being brought back to life. The museum has an active programme of restoration, and in the workshop awaiting a new life lies the oldest Fife yacht in existence. Be transported back in time when you visit the shipworkers' flat. Meticulously restored to its pre-1920s appearance. Rooms of a very different style and scale await you when you visit the sumptuous interiors of Culzean Castle, fashioned by the hand of master builder and architect Robert Adam. The jewel in Culzean's crown is the staircase leading to the famous Eisenhower suite. The designs for Culzean see Adam at his most ambitious and assured. Culzean was designed by Adam for the 10th Earl as a replacement for an earlier 15th century castle, but the grand exterior gives no hint of the rich interior that awaits the visitor. Taking the road to the south, you will pass the evocative ruins of the once great Crossraguel Abbey. Founded during the 13th century and decimated during the Scottish Reformation. Turnberry, one of the great golf courses of the world.
Okay, today we're going to use this, which is called a game improvement iron. Cover up the grip, the thumb sorry, into there. And again, if you lift this up, keep your hands on, toe up on the way through.
Here you can enjoy expert tuition with the Club Pro and benefit from all the latest teaching aids.
You'll end up being able to swing it like I did to the top, and it'll be pretty much spot on.
Once you've got your eye in, you'll be ready to test your skill at the famous 9th hole on the championship course.
Well done, better. Nice ricochet.
After your triumphs and disappointments on the golf course, take a well-deserved break in the clubhouse, surrounded by golfing trophies and memorabilia. At the well-stocked shop, you can splash out on a new club that might have made all the difference on that demanding 9th hole. At the end of the day, unwind and relax in the luxurious comfort of the Turnberry Hotel and Spa. The hotel was originally built as a railway hotel in the heyday of rail travel, and still reflects the height of Edwardian opulence and luxury. In the centre of Glasgow lies Pollok Park, which not only houses some handsome-looking Highland cattle, but also two of the finest art collections in the city. Pollok House and Estate was home to the Maxwell family for over 7 centuries, before being gifted in an act of great generosity to the city of Glasgow. The house is built in the style of Adam, although the actual architect is unknown. The elegant house contains a magnificent collection, including Esteban Murillo's exquisite Madonna. The fantastically complex astronomical clock at the foot of the stairs embodies the era's thirst for scientific knowledge. After a succession of sumptuous rooms, we come to the beautifully proportioned library, where in the early morning light, El Greco's hauntingly beautiful portrait of a young woman gazes down upon us. Only a short walk from Pollock House is the Burrell collection, housed in a purpose-built museum opened by the Queen in 1983. Sir William Burrell was a highly successful shipping agent who started work in his father's Glasgow firm at the age of 14. At this time, he also started to indulge in his real passion, collecting art. During his lifetime, Burrell amassed a collection of over 9,000 works of art, which he bequeathed to the city of Glasgow and can now be viewed in this award-winning museum. Meanwhile, in the city centre, the old Stirling Library has been imaginatively converted into a gallery of modern art. The University of Glasgow possesses one of the great university collections in Britain, housed in a purpose-built museum. The Hunterian, which also houses the Macintosh interiors, has an important collection, which includes Old Masters, Whistlers, and the Glasgow colourists. Our eastern tour begins as we cross the Campsie Hills via the Crow Road in dramatic weather. The Loop of Fintry waterfall at the head of the River Endrick gives some spectacular views of the surrounding countryside and is also home to a busy pair of dippers. Past the little churchyard in Fintry and some very hungry roe deer. We continue on our eastern tour, which will be full of amazing contrasts from the ancient castle of Stirling to the engineering miracle of the Falkirk Wheel. Along the way we'll have time to see some exotic animals and for a cookery lesson at the Nicknairn Cook School. You'll arrive in the pretty village of Kippen, where there are wonderful views over the Carse of Stirling. Stop and have a great pub lunch or relax with a cappuccino and design your own lunch in Berretts and Brown. You could even hire a picnic backpack full of your favourite food and drink for a day in the country. If you have higher culinary ambitions, take the time to be inspired by top TV chef Nick Nairn at his purpose-built cook school on the shores of the Lake of Menteith.
Where is this master? Pull the knife towards you. Add your garlic for a second. Then just cut your mushroom into 3.
There's a wonderful hotel on the lake, newly taken over by Nick Nairn. And you can hire a boat and go fishing for the day on this, the only lake in Scotland. Blair Drummond Safari Park offers both young and older visitors an exotic variety of animals in a semi-wild habitat. Stirling Castle, perched on top of the great volcanic rock, dominates the surrounding countryside and was of huge strategic importance. The Wallace Monument, standing high above the city, commemorates William Wallace, the patriot and freedom fighter. Most famously, the castle was the catalyst for the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, when William Wallace and Robert the Bruce decimated King Edward's army. The castle today is still the regimental headquarters of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, one of Scotland's foremost infantry regiments. The Regimental Museum is housed in the castle and tells the story of the origin of the expression, the thin red line. The expression was coined by a journalist who was present at the Battle of Balaclava in 1854 and witnessed the line of red-coated Highlander warriors repelling the Russian cavalry. The regiment also has quite a well-known colonel-in-chief. Running between Edinburgh and Glasgow are two great canals which meet at Falkirk. You can fish, cycle, walk or hire a boat and head off in either direction. One of the most ambitious of the Millennium projects was the construction of the Falkirk Wheel. The wheel is an audacious engineering solution to replace the 11 locks that previously connected the Union and the Forth and Clyde canals. The wheel, which lifts boats in buckets to a height of 115 feet from one canal to another, is the first and only rotating boat lift in the world and stands as a tribute to the genius of British engineering. As you approach the wheel from the higher canal, you are suspended above the landscape, an experience not to be missed. Further down the Firth of Forth lies the medieval royal borough of Corus, once a thriving port trading in coal and salt with the Low Countries and bringing back as ballast the distinctive pan tiles which now cover the roofs of the buildings. The yellow ochre that is used on some of the buildings was a sign of great wealth. And this ostentation is also reflected in the interiors. It's easy to imagine the smugglers of the 18th century skulking through these cobbled streets. After exploring the ruined abbey and this perfectly preserved ancient town, treat yourself to a delicious pub lunch in the Red Lion.
The line chart.
Glasgow's Kelvingrove Museum and Art Gallery has the largest publicly owned collection outside of London and is a must to visit when the gallery reopens in 2006. The quality and variety of the collection will not disappoint. If you're feeling a little more adventurous, visit the wonderful world of Sharmanka. These kinetic sculptures are the creation of Russian émigré Eduard Barzutsky and are like nothing you will ever have seen or experienced before. The pieces are the products of Eduard's fertile imagination and are a synthesis of his sculptures and the most fantastical machines made from discarded machinery and found objects. The Transport Museum is a great favourite amongst Glaswegians and has something to offer all ages. There's the largest collection of model ships in Europe for you to enjoy, which reflects Glasgow's past preeminence as a centre of shipping. Take a trip down memory lane when you visit the authentic recreation of a Glasgow street set in the 1930s. Back in the present, there are plenty of fashionable stores and restaurants in the West End, South Side and the city centre if you feel the need to lighten your wallet. Being the home of the deep-fried Mars bar is no longer Glasgow's only claim to fame, and there is now a plethora of gastropubs, cafes and restaurants to satisfy all tastes. For the fashion conscious, there are stores ranging from ethnic to Armani at the Italian Centre. The imaginative development of Princess Square houses a tantalising variety of shops and restaurants to suit all tastes and pockets. If it's culture you're looking for, Glasgow has an international reputation with a wonderful choice of theatres, including the Tron, Citizens, King's and Theatre Royal. All ages and tastes are catered for in an eclectic range of restaurants and entertainment venues, many of which are to be found in the newly revitalised Merchant City. As night falls, the city takes on a different character and the Glasgow style becomes evident. Visit Café Kosachok, where you can enjoy live music and the biggest selection of vodkas west of St. Petersburg. The Calmac ferries provide an essential lifeline for Scotland's many islands. And just a brief drive from Glasgow, you can take one of the shorter journeys down the Firth of Clyde to the beautiful island of Bute. The peaceful haven of the port of Rothesay in its Victorian heyday attracted thousands of Glaswegians every summer and was known as the Riviera of the Clyde. Cheap package holidays in the 60s put paid to Rothesay's preeminence, although the town is now experiencing something of a revival. The Victorian public loos on the pier head stand as a monument to lavatorial luxury. Although there is now also a women's lavatory, they were originally built as a men-only facility. Apparently the reason for this was that the prudish Victorians could not contemplate anything as indecorous as a woman spending a penny. The 13th century castle was once home to the Stuart kings, who would not have recognised the Victorian transformation of this seaside town. Rothesay evokes memories of a bygone age, but many of the magnificent buildings are now being restored to their former glory. On the high ground overlooking the bay is a mansion designed by our old friend Greek Thompson in a setting reminiscent of the south of France. few miles from Rothesay is Mount Stewart, the extravagant seat of the Marquess of Bute. This unique neo-Gothic Victorian creation was financed by the family's coal mining interests in South Wales and is the finest house of its type in Scotland. Calmac's shortest crossing at the northern end of the island will take you back to the mainland and the road to Loch Fyne. After visiting the ancient stone carvings at Kilmodon, continue around the head of the Great Sea Loch on this rugged and beautiful west coast. But don't forget to stop at the renowned Loch Fyne Oyster Bar. From humble beginnings, the Loch Fyne Oyster Bar has grown into a multinational business, exporting the finest produce from Scotland's waters all across the world. If you can't wait until you get home to sample the delicious fish, treat yourself to lunch in the bar's restaurant, where the tantalising dishes are prepared by expert chefs. After lunch, you can walk off your excesses at the exquisite Craray Gardens, beautifully and painstakingly restored by the National Trust for Scotland. Another trust garden well worth visiting is the walled garden of Gaelston, just outside Helensburgh. Inverere's whitewashed buildings stand out from a distance on the shores of Loch Fyne. The town is little changed since it was remodelled by the Duke of Argyll in the 18th century, and the present Duke still has his seat at Inverere Castle. Enjoy some historic ships at the pier. Before you visit the famous George Hotel on the High Street, take in the award-winning Inverere Jail, where you can sit in on a trial and experience life in an 18th century courthouse. finally, follow the rainbow and take the road back to Glasgow over the appropriately named Rest and Be Thankful Pass. We really hope that you've enjoyed your journey with us beyond the city, and that we've been able to share our enthusiasm for Glasgow and the surrounding areas. We look forward to seeing you on our next production, Edinburgh and Beyond.